after this hour roughly that we're going to spend together on this beautiful afternoon, that you guys have a starting point and a really good idea for, yeah, how to attack the wild and wonderful DACH market, especially using LinkedIn lead generation. Before we do, I want to start with a little reality check because I know all our time is valuable, all our time is precious, and I want to make sure if you're spending this time with us, with me, that you really are going to have value from it and that you're here because you need to be and because you should be. So just, do you recognize yourself in some of these statements, right? First of all, more broadly speaking, are you in a complex or technical B2B setting? Do you have a product that you need to market that is maybe very, very complex, that needs a lot of explaining, that needs a very good holistic approach in communication to be understood by your potential buyers? Or is it a highly technical product that maybe not everyone will understand? Then this is a strategy that should work for you. Moreover, have you maybe tried to do DACH marketing before? Have you tried to run campaigns on LinkedIn and DACH? And especially, had trouble with the language. You've been running DACH content in English. The DACH, or especially the German market, is a very international one. It's a very global one. You would think maybe that international content in English will work here. Well, I think as you'll see, and maybe as your own experience has shown you, that's not always the case, and is really one of those things that is a big point for foreign companies trying to enter this market, and is something a lot of people really struggle with. You maybe have some insecurity around the intercultural communication. Culturally, especially in Europe, we're very, very diverse. A Frenchman is different to a German. There are even differences within the DACH region between Austrians, between Germans, between the Swiss. And that can be something that's really, challenging. It's really difficult to know beforehand if what you're going to say and if your messaging, your positioning is, touching on the right points, right? Or do you recognize yourself here? Have you either never tried because of one of the above points, or maybe you've tried and failed at a previous DACH campaign? Then I hope this webinar, this live stream, will really help you maybe understand some of the reasons why that campaign didn't get off the ground, and give you some tips, some tricks, a roadmap, how to maybe go at it in your next attempt. Right. If these points are familiar to you, if you feel that this represents something or an experience that you have previously had, then this strategy will work for you, or should work for you very well. If not, then, well, thank you so much for spending at least a short part of your afternoon with us. Then maybe this is not the most valuable thing for you, but I want everyone who is here and who is spending their time to really get the most out of it. There'll be some goodies at the end still for everyone who stays around. Oh yeah, one more thing. Is your current business reliant on recommendations, on networking, on word of mouth? Do you want to scale your marketing in DACH massively and get away from that kind of constraint? Then this is also the right thing for you. There will be There will be questions at the end. I'll be doing a live Q&A, so any use cases or points that maybe come up for you, please note them down for yourself, and put them in the chat at the end, or put them in the chat throughout. I'll really take my time and look through everything at the end and try to answer all of your questions as well as possible. But first, I also wanted to bring you a little bit of proof that what I'm about to tell you works. And I have the wonderful Verena, who is a senior account manager at LinkedIn themselves. She is one of our very, very close partners on the agency side, and has very graciously allowed me to use her wonderful quote here. At some point, you have to tell me the secret of how we get such low cost per leads for our clients. Well, if Verena was in the live stream today, she would know, but fortunately for some, she's maybe not. Who are we, or who am I? Maybe just to start, my name is Lucas. I'm a project manager and an international strategist here at Xhauer. We are a very ambitious, very young LinkedIn marketing agency founded roughly 5 years ago. And yeah, in that time, we've managed to complete over 200 really successful lead gen projects in DACH for all different types of clients of various sizes and various levels of marketing maturity. And one of our small but very important claims to fame is that we have one of the 30 global LinkedIn certified marketing experts with us in our team. She works in our media buying team and is absolutely fantastic at what she does. These are just some of the clients that we've worked with in the last couple of years. You've got, like I said, some smaller companies, maybe in software engineering, in location services, but also very big and well-known companies such as Public Cloud Group, Allianz, Paychex. And so this is a system that, as long as those certain elements of complexity are given, will work at almost any scale. Obviously, we know LinkedIn requires a certain level, but principally the strategy works. So what is the objective of today? Right. The objective is to be able to give you guys complete clarity on the 3 main steps for LinkedIn lead generation in DACH. Now, this is a huge and wonderful topic where you could spend hours and hours and hours learning new things, investing in new tests. This is something we're learning every single day, how to be better than we were yesterday. And everything I'm trying to share with you today is our learnings over the last 5 years and 200 projects condensed into 45 minutes or an hour. So I'm really trying to give you the most important elements that you can then take away for yourselves. To do that, we need to understand a little bit about the DACH buyer. Now, before we get too into the details, I want to start with a statement that's maybe a bit obvious for most of you, but at the end of the day, DACH buyers, German speakers in business, in B2B, are human beings like any other. We laugh, we cry, we talk. We like to joke. We're normal people and don't need to necessarily always be treated as a wild animal or something, right? However, there are definitely some small things that are important to understand, some generalizations that you can make that will help you inform your messaging, inform your general marketing strategy, but also your sales when you've collected the leads and when you're able to nurture them. There are some things to keep in mind. The single most important thing, and this is a conversation I probably have 2 to 3 times a week with our partners and our clients, is marketing in DACH means to serve first. What does that mean specifically? Well, it simply means that your marketing, your positioning should always come, or your messaging should always come from the angle of, is this content generally providing value for who my intended audience is, right? Am I helping them solve a problem? Am I helping them feel better about something? Am I providing them with something that they themselves can use, can feel good about, can implement in their day-to-day that doesn't require them to make a commitment or make a purchase from me, right? This can be many different things. We'll get into some possible formats. We'll get into some strategies that you can use here. However, this can be things like a newsletter. This can be things like a checklist or a guide or a manual that really is written and developed from the perspective of, I want to help this person, right? And that is the most important thing to understand. The nuance of DACH buyers is trust is really important. And here you build trust by helping, by serving someone else, by providing value without directly requiring something in return. The second thing is that DACH buyers or DACH buying committees in general tend to be more risk averse, especially when compared to our compatriots and our colleagues from, for example, the UK. DACH buyers tend to be more risk averse. Right? That doesn't mean that they don't take risks. It's just that they need to understand said risks more deeply. They will take more time in really exploring the different options, exploring hypotheticals, exploring opportunity costs. And that is something to be aware with for yourselves when doing, for example, internal forecasting, when planning long-term marketing strategies, and having a look at KPIs further down the sales funnel. This really just means that maybe you need to do a little bit more work in either removing the risk or making the risk manageable for your prospects, helping them understand the risk, helping them what could potentially go wrong, but also explaining what measures your product system takes to mitigate those risks. And that is actually a very, very useful way to score some real points with DACH buying committees, is by acknowledging and speaking openly about the risks of a collaboration, of a project, of a product, because they will appreciate that. And the final thing, which I kind of already touched on a little bit, but I like to present in this very sort of cutthroat way because it's true. Believe it or not, humor is not illegal here. Many, many, many people have know the stereotype of the serious German, in a suit, works for Audi, and only looks at spreadsheets and numbers all day and can't really laugh. That could not be further from the truth, right? Especially if you speak German or know a German speaker, have a look or ask them about the ads they see in their day-to-day lives, whether it be for a B2C product or a B2B product in the German market. You will find we love humor. We love puns. We love being a little bit tongue-in-cheek. We love, using a play on words. The issue is more so that, or the issue, not the issue, the struggle is more so being able to understand how to do the humor here, right? And this is where you really need either someone who has an experience in the culture through their own personal upbringing, or you find a partner that helps you to produce content that will actually resonate. This goes back to the previous slide we had regarding, the insecurities around intercultural communication. There, obviously, you can use trial and error, and you will not always get it right. That is part of marketing. That is part of the game that we're all playing. You will not always get it right. But finding a partner or having someone in your team who has this capability, who has the cultural background, will really, really help you minimize and avoid the risks that you take with that kind of communication. But if you take one thing away from this, I really want you to try and use some humor for your next campaign. It works, trust. What definitely won't work, especially in 2025. I think as marketers, especially B2B marketers, we've all kind of gotten past the point of believing in linear buyer journeys. And in the DACH market, that is even more so true, right? The buyer journey of someone sees your ad, clicks on the ad, goes to your website, and fills out a form just doesn't work in 2025. Arguably, it probably never really worked, and it doesn't work in DACH at all because, as we said before, DACH buyers tend to be more risk averse. They want you to woo them. They want you to spend the time to give them all the information, to present everything in a way that makes sense, and also give them the time to come to you. Give them the time to get over that hurdle. So the journey realistically looks a little bit more like this, right? So how do we use this? How do we generate value for ourselves? How do we generate value for our prospects, for the people we're trying to market to? Well, it's by being visible, by making a touch point with the user at every single one of these tiny twists and turns throughout the journey. You want to make sure that you are there for the prospect, that you are never leave them in the dark, never leave them looking around. Always be there to guide them to the next step, to guide them to the next point. So this is a very hopefully useful introduction just to start for everyone to know that this is what they want to be doing with their afternoon today. And hopefully I've already been able to give you some insights into more the soft factors about why your campaigns maybe previously haven't performed as you would like them to. What is going to be the real meat and bones of what we're going to cover today? Well, we're going to cover 3 steps, right? The first one is, how to reach those DACH decision makers. How do you get in front of the right eyes at the right time in front of the right people, right? Or how to reach 1,000 DACH decision makers per day. Show you how that works in a second. Step 2, okay, we found our decision makers. We've ensured that our content is being played to them, that they see us, and that they at least know who we are. Well, then, how do we get leads from that? And more importantly, how do we generate leads at a good price, at a good cost per lead? We all know LinkedIn, in comparison to Meta, to other platforms, tends to be a significantly more expensive platform, but that is a result of the highly, highly specific targeting you can do. Now, if you know how to utilize audiences, if you know how to utilize especially retargeting audiences and combine the technical media buying element with excellent content, you can generate leads for 1/10 of the market price directly through LinkedIn. And I'm going to show you how to do that today. And then once you've got the leads, well, what do you do with them then, right? You can have a very classic approach where you just wait for them to talk to you, or your sales calls them every day. This is maybe not the best approach. Again, remember, the DACH buyer tend to be a little bit more risk averse. They tend to be a little bit shyer and are not that appreciative if you blow up their phone every single day 3 times asking for a 20-minute call. That's not going to work. There are ways to do it. I will show you how that works. We like to call it the hidden lever, because it really is. And then, like I promised, at the end, we'll do a live Q&A session. So you can post any questions, obviously, now, and I'll have a look through them later, or you can keep your questions for the end. And we'll have a look through everything, and I'll try to answer them to the best of my abilities. And after this live stream is over, you will get an email from me again, where I will also send you these slides, where at the end you will have a little slide with a resource section with a bunch of useful resources, including a GPT prompt document, which we built, which basically will guide you step by step through this entire process, and will help you to at least develop a foundation, to develop a strategy, to develop a plan, and also be able to produce some of that content for you. Obviously, we know AI is always a bit finicky, but principally this GPT prompt series is going to give you everything you need to at least make a start of it. Right. So the bananas. What is this? What the hell? Well, this is an important metaphor, we think, to understand if you're going to market and try to expand and grow in the DACH market. And that is the metaphor of the bananas, right? Many people think that when they've got a lead, or when they've got a contact with a potential client, that person is immediately interested, perfectly aware of what you want, has gone through all the prospecting themselves, and is ready to buy from you. Again, we know this is not true. We know that we need to first find the right people. We need to get them onto our own ground, into our content series, and then we need to progressively nurture them through. And this can be sort of likened to a banana, right? We need to find the banana plantation. Where do they grow these bananas? Where are our prospects, right? Then we need to collect said bananas, but those bananas aren't ready to buy from us. Those bananas are not ready to be eaten. They are green. Once we've collected them, we need to help them and guide them through the ripening process, right? We need to turn them into a ripe banana, one that can be, that it has all the information that is maybe ready to speak in a more serious way with sales. And then we need to turn them into an overripe banana or a client, right? And this metaphor is really useful for yourselves. Whenever you have a touch point with a potential client, think, is this client or is this prospect a green banana, is a ripe banana, or is a overripe banana? Because what the answer to that question is changes how you approach the problem. We are all marketers. We can also show you sort of what this looks like in a funnel system. And this picture here, or rather this picture here, is what we're going to be covering today. And I'm going to build this funnel with you together in this live stream. The end goal is the demo call or the sales opportunity, the overripe banana. We start here though, and we start with the green bananas. How do we find them? How do we look for green bananas? Or how do you reach the 1,000 DACH decision makers per day? Step 1 of 3 of what we're going to go through today. All right. We have our funnel, and we start classically in an awareness phase. In this awareness phase, what we want to do is prospect our prospects for their interest. We want to see and search the market to see if there is already a base level of interest in what it is we do, if there's an understanding of our services, if there is a need of our services. And this is something we can do very well in an awareness phase. The awareness phase is also wonderful for testing, for A/B testing different audiences. LinkedIn, gives you many different opportunities to build your audiences, either through job titles, through company functions, and many other options that you have. Trust us, test these different audience options. Don't just build one audience and go with it the rest of your campaign. Testing is the most important thing here, huh? On a technical side, but also on a content side. We like to group the content into what we call expert postings, right? So this is, on the one hand, thought leader ads, which I'll get to in a second, but focusing first on very classical awareness ads. These are ads that, you're trying to solicit a trigger, a response from your audience. You are testing different theories on your end. What are the pain points? Does your audience understand that they have a problem? Has your audience maybe even already, done some research into it? Have they looked at different opportunities? The awareness phase and the awareness ads are an excellent phase to test it in, because also what we're doing here is we are delivering our content to a cold audience. You have to go from the premise that your audience doesn't know you yet. They don't know who you are. They don't know what you do. And now if you were to go to this audience, especially a DACH audience, if you were to go to this audience and say, hey, talk to sales, well, that's a little bit like proposing on the first date, and is generally something we would not recommend, whether in your personal life or in marketing. Take your time, relax a little bit, all right? And the awareness ads allow you to do that because they allow you to solicit certain responses from your audience, to figure out and to learn about them which will inform the rest of your strategy. The other option that you have are thought leader ads. And this I want to go a little bit more into detail in because it's a relatively new thing in especially the DACH market. It's something we've been experimenting massively, both for ourselves and for our clients over the last couple of weeks and months. And if you're going to run an awareness campaign here, in our opinion, this is a must. Before I go too much into detail about this, just really quickly, if anyone is not sure if LinkedIn is the right channel for you right now, I've brought you this quote from Gary Vaynerchuk. Think of him as a human, what you will. What he does in terms of marketing and his understanding of social psychology is excellent. And yeah, in 2023, he dropped this quote in a podcast. If you're not running LinkedIn ads for your business right now, you're making a massive mistake. He sees LinkedIn as being very reminiscent of Facebook in 2013. This is not something, we can agree with or disagree with, but principally we see spends, we see interest, we see the maturity of the platform skyrocketing, especially in the last 2 years. And we think now is a must. If you're not doing LinkedIn ads for your B2B business yet, you're making a massive mistake. If you do it well, it's a huge arbitrage. And part of this live stream, I hope for you, is the journey of doing it well. Right. But thought leader ads. What are sponsored posts with LinkedIn thought leader ads? Well, principally, it's as simple as a individual user. I've brought you an example from our founder here, Michael Assauer, makes an organic post on their profile, on their LinkedIn profile, just as if you or I would be posting a status update. They post from their organic profile. So you generate this organic reach first. And then what you do is you take said posting and you sponsor it using an ads account. And this basically allows you, on the one hand, to profit from the organic reach of whosever profile you're using. Usually helps if you have someone who wants to build a brand in the market, a founder, a head of sales, a head of marketing potentially, maybe even a head of product. These can all be really, really useful protagonists to run these postings from, right? And this is kind of, like I said, this is this new insider tip for personal brands and corporate influencers who really want to be the first to own their target audience, right? Yes, we work in B2B. We deal with highly complex problems. We deal with complex products, large buyer committees. However, it is simply a truth that people trust people more than a polished message. And the performance that these kinds of postings get from a personal profile, from an individual, from a human being with a face and thoughts and opinions and feelings are much, much, much more effective, especially in an awareness phase of generating high levels of engagement, high levels of impressions, really good click-through rates. And I'll show you some KPIs, some examples from our own experiments with this in a second. We also think that everyone will be using this in a year, even compared to 6 months ago. This format has exploded on LinkedIn, especially in DACH. And we really think it's a must for any awareness strategy in the DACH market at the moment, because it is this perfect combination of organic and paid. And if you maybe don't have the biggest budget, it's also a very, very economical way of generating, for example, a retargeting audience, right? You really only need about 50 euros budget per day for 1,000 exact target customers to see your posts daily. Why am I saying 1,000 exact targets? Well, because on the one hand, like I said, you have the organic content, the organic reach of the followers that the profile has built. However, what we are also doing is we are taking this posting and sponsoring it through an ad account on a built audience that you have built yourself. And you can decide exactly who should see your posts. That's why with 50 euros per day, you can reliably generate impressions from 1,000 of your exact target customers every single day. I mean, it's a wonderful system at the moment. Here, I've shown you some examples, a little screenshot from our own ads manager from the Thought Leader campaign of Michael, our founder. And if you just look here a little bit at also the creatives that we're using, I mean, they're not incredibly polished, right? These are normal pictures from day to day. Here we have Michael on a bridge in Frankfurt, just giving us a wonderful smile and a thumbs up. These are not, highly polished creatives, because that's not the point. The point is the individual, to show the individual and show and position them as a thought leader, as a corporate influencer, whatever you want to call it in the end. It has to be real. It has to be human. It has to be organic, right? And if you do that, you can achieve incredible results. I mean, if you take, so according to LinkedIn, in DACH, an awareness campaign in a single image format has a benchmark click-through rate of about 0.4%, right? If you compare that to the click-through rates or engagement rates you get from these kinds of thought leader posts, you see what the difference is, right? The best performer here has over 20% click-through rate, which is a wonderful, wonderful result, and is something that really, really allows you, and it's the reason why this format helps in the awareness phase so much. Moreover, here as an example, so obviously this is in German, I will translate this to you, but this is the demographic data report of the organic posts from Michael after we started sponsoring, right? And you see here, this is the chairman of the board. We've got CEOs, we've got founders, we've got co-founders, and we've got owners of companies. And these are the most viewed job titles of his thought leader post. And this is another reason why this format is so excellent. To summarize, the most important thing, a protagonist who wants to be visible in their audience, who wants to build their personal brand and use that for the gain of the company, but obviously it's also a gain for themselves. Content in a natural human way. Your copies, your posts should be very much the personal opinions, or the opinions can be also the opinions of the business, but the opinions of the thought leader on their topic, on their market, and they should have something to say. And if you combine that with some clever targeting, some cool and well-built audiences, you will have fantastic results. So we have our green bananas. Now, this is what we want. We want to take the next step. We want to take their hand and move them along the very, very complicated journey that we saw earlier. And how do we do this? We do this by using a very basic but very important principle. Honestly, if there's one thing you take from the live stream today, I want it to be this principle. The mere exposure effect. The mere exposure effect is a somewhat weird, but actually quite logical psychological effect that's been well documented in humans. And it basically just states the more often we perceive a person or a brand or a thing, the more positively we evaluate them, and especially the more trust we give them. And this is the principle around which this entire strategy is based. We want to expose your target audience to as many relevant, useful, well-crafted touch points as possible along their journey, and always be there for them and always be present. So how do we do that? Well, we've got some more steps in our funnel, some more touch points that we can build. We've set up an awareness phase. We've A/B tested many different target audiences. We found a target audience that works well. We're happy with our KPIs. We think we have a very good understanding of our market, where our audience is, and we've built up using the engagers of the thought leader ads and the awareness ads, also website visitors, we've built a retargeting audience, right? Now we want to actually generate leads from that retargeting audience, right? We're going to the lead generation phase now. And here's where most people make the mistake. A common thing you hear, oh my God, LinkedIn leads are so expensive. I'm paying 200 euros. I'm paying 300 euros. I'm paying 350 euros plus for one lead. How is this? How can I do this better, right? Well, you need to think about it this way. We all know in marketing the 95-5 rule, right? Only 5% of your entire possible market is actually in the market at any one time. Now, if you were to tell those 100%, hey, come talk to us, sign up, and only 5% and spend your entire budget on those 100%, obviously your lead costs are going to be insane. That's, to be honest, it's a little bit like fishing in the ocean with a shotgun. You're not going to be very efficient with your bullets, right? And what we want to do using the retargeting audiences is capture all those users that are already interested, that have already shown some kind of intent, some kind of interest, and put them into a little bucket so that you can then put your fishing rod into the bucket and you don't have to waste all your budget or spend all your budget on a much bigger audience. How do we do that? Well, we start with a lead magnet. This can, we'll get into more details about what this can exactly be in a second, but the lead magnet is basically a content piece that you offer your target audience in exchange for their contact details. Why? Because we want to get their contact details into our CRM. We want to be independent from LinkedIn, from Google, from all these platforms, and we want to be able to market to this audience on our own terms. Right? Once we have those contacts in our CRM, we can do many, many different things with them. It always kind of depends on product, on market, on industry, etc. But one of the classic ways is, for example, using email marketing. And here again, the important thing is valuable content, content that is useful for your target audience without being pushy, without being salesy. You can always give them the option, say, hey, if you want to chat with us about this, just book a call here. That is always a possibility, and you will find that many do, but that is always or should always be the second part. The first part is, hey, we want to tell you something. We have an insight for you about a problem you've been facing. We know you've been facing this problem because you've interacted with content regarding it further up in the funnel. And so we can, with relative certainty, say, this thing that we are delivering to you is going to be useful for you. And then we want to guide them through different options into a demo call or a sales opportunity. Or how to generate the DACH leads for 1/10 of the market price using LinkedIn ads. Because your contact list will save you in a crisis. If your only channel for outreach and the only channel to generate sales opportunities is LinkedIn or Google or Meta, and they change their algorithm tomorrow and they change their policies tomorrow, and what you do doesn't work anymore, what do you do then, right? If you, however, can manage to get all these prospects out of the platform and into your own ownership, this will save you in a crisis because you can generate demand with one click. So how do we do lead gen ads below market price? Before getting into some options and showing you some different formats, some strategies you can use, I just want to make sure everyone understands what I'm talking about. What we're doing is we run a classic single image ad, the copy, a creative that produces the scroll stopper effect that's interesting, and then we have a lead gen form behind this. Now, obviously, different CRMs, different situations will require different information to be gathered. Our very, very strong recommendation is when you start and when you run your first campaign of this style, keep the friction as low as possible. We, for ourselves, generally only have the autofill forms of name, last name, the profile URL, and the email address in our lead gen forms, because someone who signs up for this for the lead as a lead, remember, they're not an overripe banana. They're maybe not even a ripe banana. They could just be a green banana. So these people just want content. They just want more of what you've already given them, right? And here it's enough in many cases if we just have an email address. What are some formats you can use that work really, really well for lead gen? We're going to go first into some creative ideas, some creative inspiration, and then I'll talk a little bit more about the copywriting part of it, but some formats that work really, really well in DACH. And I've brought you 5. The first one is memes. Now, memes we all understand as like the funny pictures we like on Instagram and share with our friends. But a meme, really, if you think about it, is nothing other than a subconscious thought, a understanding that maybe your target audience has with each other that they don't explicitly share. And this gives you a lot of opportunities to play with different creative styles. Just as an example, for here, this is an ad we created for paychecks. It's very simple. It's very, we're just using some emojis and a little bit of copy text, but it basically, paychecks for context is a payroll company. And it's basically just says, it's time for payroll. You want to look like this or like this. And it's a very simple approach, but it works. And this is where also your learnings from the awareness phase will really come good for you, because you will understand, okay, what are the touch points? What are the pain points, the subconscious thoughts and beliefs that my audience has, and how can I play with them? And memes are a great format for that. A little bit of a preview already for what's going to come later. When you get the slides in the ChatGPT prompts, there is also a whole section about hypothesizing and figuring out different pain points, different triggers that your audience may have. So that will be really useful for those who maybe have not done that much research beforehand. But this is also something you learn as you go. Then comics. We love comics. Personally, I have to say it's my absolute favorite ad format because you can do so much with them. First of all, comics are quite rare on LinkedIn, especially in DACH. You don't see them a lot. So you have that element of, well, users haven't really seen this much, so it's more likely to produce that scroll stopper effect. And comics give you the opportunity to sort of hold a mirror up to your target audience, right? You can display day-to-day situations that they've dealt with, right? And you will have users looking at this and say, or prospects looking at this and saying, oh my God, that was me on Tuesday. This is literally me last week. This was me this weekend. They know exactly how I feel. They know exactly what my situation is. And we see as well that these kinds of ads, these formats get much more engagements than like a traditional just a picture with a text on it, for example, because users in the target audience will tag their colleagues. They will say, oh my God, this is so you, and things like that. And that obviously, that boosts your algorithm, that boosts your KPIs, and it's just good for your campaign. And it has that psychological effect of what I just said of, oh my God, these people get me. As humans, we want to be understood. Even in our work life, this person knows my problems. And that just builds trust. And also, they're just very cool creatives. Then you can do infographics. Infographics are sort of similar to comics, but obviously less on the humorous side. These are really useful if you have, for example, a comparison between two things, like, for example, the automotive software testing ad we developed here. Or it can also be a case of, showing the different options for your target audience. Infographics, again, especially if you generate them in this kind of handwritten style almost, are an excellent scroll stopper and tend to be very, very good lead gen ads. AI. We've heard it, we know about it, everyone's running around with the AI topic. Here, honestly, we have maybe a little bit of a different opinion to what tends to be sort of the big or the pervasive idea in the market, and that is do not overuse it. Everyone has discovered that using Midjourney or Sora or even ChatGPT, you can make basically everything. You don't need video days anymore. You don't need content days. People have grown wise to it. We've already noticed a reduction, even, I mean, the hype around AI creatives was probably at its biggest towards the end of last year, sort of summer, fall. And even now we've noticed the performance of these kinds of creatives, especially these obviously AI generated images. People know, people see, they know you've not really spent that much time on it, even if you maybe have. It doesn't give that personal feeling. So we would encourage you to use them, to experiment with them, but we would also urge you to be cautious and not to overuse them. If you're going to run a campaign, we would say at max, one creative should be an AI creative, and no more than that, because people know, people recognize what is AI and what isn't, and they just don't perform as well anymore. And then the last one is the billboard format. This is an excellent format. Again, to sort of hold a mirror up to your audience. This is also a format that works really, really well in awareness because you can test different triggers really, really well. If you have, for example, just a sort of a red background with a single statement that pointedly looks at a trigger, and you run a campaign where you have different versions of that, you can see very, very well, based on the click-through rate, based on the engagement rate, which topics, which emotions, which triggers are more relevant to your audience. This also works then later in lead generation, further down the funnel, where you can maybe add a little bit more information. But also, if you found that there are certain statements and certain topics that just ring really well with your audience, this is where to put them, right? Again, here, this is a ad for, and again, here you can use humor. For example, this here is an ad we developed for a software testing company, right? And it's very simple. 9 o'clock, so it goes live. 9:08, the server's down. And then you get tons of people from this industry in the comments saying, oh my God, every time. And they will be much more likely to sign up for whatever it is you're promising in your lead gen campaign. Copywriting. Copywriting, it is really, really important to use the slang of your target audience. An example that we use here, or that we like to run through, especially at the beginning of big projects, is when you're discussing the pain points, when you're discussing the positive and negative, or the sun, one second. When you're discussing the transformation from a problem to a solution there we go. When you're discussing the transformation from a problem to a solution for your target audience, you want to use their own words, right? And what we do here with our potential clients, when we do a workshop, for example, we say, pretend your audience is sitting in the pub or at dinner and they've had 2 beers or 3 glasses of wine. How would they be talking about this topic? Right? And that's the wording you want to capture, because that is what's going to resonate with your audience. That is what's going to trigger that emotional, oh my God, this is me. I've seen this before, right? When I say from rain to sun, it's your audience is here. maybe they don't even know they have a problem, but they certainly feel it. They feel the pain, they feel the problem, and we want to transition them, at least in the first step emotionally, and then obviously later with your product or your service, from this rainy situation to the sun. A good way to work on this for yourself is to use this kind of language of, I have the feeling that, right? Try to position yourself in the shoes of your target audience, of the key people you want to reach, and try to answer this statement, like fill in the blanks and say, I have the feeling that every day I'm looking at my campaigns and the cost per leads go up and nothing that I do changes. This is an example, right? And then where we want to take them is here. I recognize that I'm making progress by the fact that. And here again, it is important to use the slang of your target audience. How would they define this situation? How would they say it? And from these experiments, from these questions that you ask yourself, this is where you generate great copies, where you generate great content in general, because this is the gold mine for what your audience really thinks. Very important caveat, and this is the most really important. Give yourself a buzzword ban, right? Words like efficient, effective, sustainable, successful, digitalization, digital transformation, taking something to the next level, ban those. Ban them from your repertoire. They don't mean anything to people anymore, right? When I say I want to make your processes more efficient, that means that can mean anything, and therefore it means nothing. Really cool trick I'd like to give you here, and I encourage you to do this in your next content meeting. Put a little jar in the middle of the table, and every time someone in the team or in the meeting uses one of these words, they have to put some money in, right? And then at the end of the meeting, you guys can all go for a drink using that money. So this is a great way to stop yourself and to remind yourself to not use this, right? Use the slang of your target audience. No project manager, right, will tell you, I would like to make my capacity planning more efficient, right? If after 2 beers, especially, they will tell you, I don't want to spend 3 hours planning the days of the people in my team. And this is the copy that you need to use in order to really be that mirror for your audience. Great. What is an irresistible lead magnet? We personally have found the best type of lead magnet to be some sort of what would classically be known as a white paper. Unfortunately, the term white paper has kind of been very much destroyed, and again has become meaningless nowadays because anything can be a white paper. What we mean here, and this is very important, is topical, excellent, and correct content and content, right? This is what I meant at the very beginning of the live stream when I'm talking about serve first. Nothing in your PDF, in your white paper, in your checklist should be pre-dependent on them buying your product. You can absolutely make references to what you do. You can give them the option to book calls, to discuss things with you in the white paper or in the lead magnet. At no point should it be, you must purchase this in order to take this step. That will not work. That is cheating your audience out of something because they've given you something in return for this content. This is the premise of the lead generation campaign via LinkedIn, is I am exchanging my contact details for this valuable information. In order to hold up your end of the deal, you must provide valuable information. That is the most important element here. Again, when you get the slides afterwards, you'll find, and you'll also find this on the resources page, you'll find a template for how we like to do our lead magnets for you to download. There'll be a finished example in there. It's all in English, don't worry. And you guys can just kind of replicate this and play around and see what you come up with for yourselves. Again, always respect your audience and especially respect your DACH audience. That's why also we, just on the naming side of it, we encourage you, stay away from white paper. Doesn't mean anything anymore. Stay away from report. No one really is that interested in a report anymore. People don't have time to just read a report because, oh, it's interesting. We marketers love to do that because we care about what other people think. Not everyone is structured that way. Things that do work really well. A checklist. Checklists are fantastic options of naming your lead magnet and also generally providing them with checklists that they can use for themselves to gauge maybe how far they are in a project, how far they are in a maturity stage, etc. A manual works really well as well. How do I solve this problem myself? Here's a manual to deal with X, right? These are things that work really well. Finally, a guide is always a good idea as well. Guides give you the opportunity also to be a bit more broad in your content, to be more general. In our experience, checklist, manual, guide are really, really excellent phrases or phrasings to name your lead magnet. So this email is in German, but I will really quickly translate it to you. This is an email we got from Veronica after she got our lead magnet, right? This is like, hey, Michael, thank you for the ad in the video. I tried it myself. It seems to work really well. You really hit the nail on the head with me. Yeah, I would love to set up a call with you. Unfortunately, the calendar link doesn't work. Would these days work for you? And this is this element of, building trust and serving first and being like, look, I gave you something that is generally useful for you, that is really helpful, that helps you solve something. And people are much, much more inclined to speak with you after you've done that. And that is the core premise of this strategy. I want to give you a practical example of what kind of results you get. I know, we said at the beginning, we've had clients come to us with, hey, I have 250, I have 300, I have 400 euros cost per lead, which is, nobody should be paying that for a lead. That's not fair. And I just want to show you a practical example of what kind of results you can get, right, with this strategy. Here with Bridgeflow, it's an Asana partner, we developed this project and we used a very, very simple, just an infographic here, which sort of shows the timeline of the life of a project manager. Again, the mirroring system, right? We've called it a free checklist for project managers or people who are responsible for the project, how to get 40% more productivity. This is the ad. And these are the KPIs, right? So again, here you see it's a very, very simple graphic. We spent about just over 4,000 euros on this ad, and we were able to generate 555 leads at €7.42 per lead. That is a ridiculous cost per lead in LinkedIn or on LinkedIn generally, and even more so in DACH. The DACH benchmark for cost per leads in B2B at the moment is at 150 euros. This is the way to generate leads at these kinds of prices. And again, you can see here, project manager, the comments and the engagement under these ads, right? That's true. Amazing. How true. Unfortunately, our daily bread. Right? So you can see what I'm talking about this concept of holding up a mirror to your audience and telling them or showing them that you understand them. Again, we've developed a little guide for you guys on how to develop these kinds of ads. There's some technical guides. There's some copywriting elements in here as well. And you will find it on this slide when you grab your slides after the call or after the live stream. You will also find them on the resources page. Then we've found the right people. We've ensured that our content is the right content. We've ensured that our content gets sent to the right people. We've developed our lead gen campaign. We've started collecting leads under market price. We've developed a pipeline that works consistently well. Now, what do we do? All right. What is the next bit that's missing to get someone from here to here to here? Well, it's really three main things. It's a LinkedIn connection outreach strategy, obviously your sales, and remarketing. Before we get more into detail on the connection DMs, because this is the main topic I want to really get into, is this completely underused, unfortunately, especially in bigger companies. They do not do this, and we don't understand why, because it's a no-brainer, really. Telesales makes pretty logical sense. I think we all, have a sales team in the background, and we want them to then be able to, go at the leads and talk to them and develop those opportunities further. They also have a nurturing responsibility. This is really important, that your sales doesn't just run headfirst and propose on the first date. And we know classic remarketing ads. We've built the retargeting audiences in awareness, and now we can just make sure to continuously nurture them with remarketing content on LinkedIn to ensure that also on this, the mere exposure effect, we continuously interact with them. They see our touch points, etc., etc. The LinkedIn connection and the DM is really the hidden lever. This is the main thing that I want to show you here, is how to generate predictable DACH sales opportunities. We think this is a strategy that can be used internationally. However, in DACH, it is really, really powerful because of the risk aversion, because of the, it's more difficult to really get into a conversation with someone here. We think this is the single best lever for predictable sales opportunities in DACH. Really quick, just as we know, the user signs up over a lead gen ad. They've got a lead gen form, and then you get the name, the profile URL, and the email, right? Once someone has signed up for a lead, you connect with them, the protagonist in the best case, because we want to combine this with the thought leader ad strategy. The protagonist reaches out to that lead. You have the LinkedIn profile URL, and you do an outreach using what we like to call the shoe salesman technique, right? Or the shoe salesman message, right? I will translate this in a second, but what is the shoe salesman message, or how does it work? Well, you guys know when you go into a shoe store, or most clothing stores really, you walk in, you maybe, you're looking around a little bit at the first things that you see once you get in the door. And then within 2 minutes, usually, you'll have the salesman in the shop come up to you and say, "Hey, can I help you?" And you will say, "Oh, no, I'm just browsing a little bit." And then they will say, "No worries, enjoy your time. If you need me, I'll be right over there." And we're going to do the same thing, but using LinkedIn, right? So, and this works especially well for DACH because we don't want to be too pushy, right? Here we have Michael. "Hey, Frank, thank you that you downloaded the LinkedIn ads guide. I wish you a ton of fun and success with it. If you ever have questions to LinkedIn ads, you know where to find me. Kind regards, your Michael." Super simple, not pushy, really easily done, but an excellent opener because, well, Frank, "Hi, Michael. Thank you very much. And this is the important bit, compliment for the non-pushy contact. All DACH buyers and those in decision-making positions get tons and tons of pushy outreach. They get cold called, cold emailed, etc. They really respect it and appreciate it if you don't do that. And we hear it again and again and again and again that we got praise and we got a ton of appreciation and people want to speak with us exactly because we don't do that. If you read it further on, usually when you get something like that, you already have to block time in your calendar and have a sales call and everything. I'll keep it in the back of my mind. Many thanks. Have a good weekend. I think 3 weeks later, this company became our clients. And this is exactly what's so important here. It's this, just show them you're there. Show them you want to help them. Show them you can help them, and go into that. Then once we've established the connection, you can use a simple 5 messaging framework. It's one that most people are quite familiar with. It's this idea of, having them self-qualify themselves. You're asking more questions. And only then after sort of 5 messages do you really go into the details of the discussion. We're working on a 5-message framework script for in English, which should also work for the DACH market. This will be sent to you probably in an email sometime next week. And it's a really cool thing. Well, we've built the funnel. We find our people in awareness. We do tests. We figure out what the trigger points are. We bring them into our own CRM. We provide them with valuable, useful content. We nurture them at every point in the journey. And finally, we get them into the sales call or into a demo call.